Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers kick away a golden opportunity in Dallas. This was arguably their worst loss of the year. We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends. No matter how or where you get your podcast, this one's always going to be free and never behind a paywall. And of course, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 27,000 subscribers are all really annoyed at what the Lakers did on Tuesday night. They go into Dallas with a golden opportunity to get a little separation between them and a team chasing them in the standings, and without their two stars. And with one of their other best players in foul trouble. And they lose the game 118-97, Andy, in arguably the worst game that the Lakers have played this season. We will break it all down here in a second, right after I tell you that today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I understand, Andy, every time they have a game like this, it feels like, oh, yeah, this is the worst one of the season. This one really might be the worst one of the season when you put everything together in terms of context, opportunity, meaning, all of that.
Contextually, it is impossible to explain away this loss. Like, it just simply is. This is a game where Dallas was on the second end of a back-to-back where they had traveled. So they actually got into Dallas after presumably the Lakers got into Dallas. No Luka Doncic, no Kyrie Irving, no Daniel Gafford. Derek Lively spends much of the game in foul trouble. And this wasn't even one of those nights where, vintage Klay Thompson shows up. He put on the sailor cap and went nuclear for 50. Klay was the fifth leading scorer on the Mavericks. And outside of a burst to end the second quarter that, to be clear, I think was very important in terms of changing the tone of this game, 9 of his 13 points came in about 2 minutes in the second quarter. He was otherwise kind of an afterthought in this game. For the Lakers to give up 118 while only scoring 97 in this context, and that doesn't even get into the importance of what they need to do in January, and Dallas being one of the teams, as you said, right up next to them. This may be the most inexcusable loss of the season when we take stock of however this season turns out. We may very well look back on this one and say that was the one least explainable away. Nor should anybody try.
No, I mean, look, I always like to count to 10 after games like this and be like, well, what happened? Did they play hard? Did they overlook their opponent? Did the other team, even the worst teams, have great nights? Is that what happened? It's like, and you start to break it down, and the answer is to most of those things is no. Like, it's just, they were bad. And I think they had moments where they focused and felt like those would be enough to push themselves through. And when they didn't, they just, that was one of those times where, okay, now you've got a team that's playing confident, that looks around and says, okay, we've got 5 guys in double figures. Yeah, 5 guys in double figures in this game, and guys are feeling confident. And Spencer Dinwiddie is certainly not an unafraid player. PJ Washington and Quentin Grimes off the bench at 23 and 9, and 6. I mean, he had a great
Hardy. He went on a run. He had 3 threes in 3 consecutive possessions, and wide open.
To me, what broke down the most, especially defensively, was the first night in a little bit where you just felt like the communication. I'll excuse this against Cleveland. They do this to everybody. this was a game where it felt like their communication and the attention to detail that the coaching staff has preached over and over, that they talk about at length all the freaking time because it's important. But it felt like this was a game where all of that completely and totally went out the window. And, they got it together for a couple decent stretches. And I think they thought when they, after kind of I don't want to say sluggish because they were winning after the first quarter, but Dallas gets back into it. And I think that, they got out that push where they were up 6 with a couple minutes to go in the second quarter. And I think they thought, okay, now we'll just play, and we are a team that knows what we're doing, and we can get it going. Dallas goes on that flurry. Clay hits the 3 threes, and then the killer, I think, was Dinwiddie getting to the rim with half a second left on the final possession, and now all of a sudden you go into the locker room and it's like, what happened? That stretch really turned the game. They had an opportunity, I guess, to try to fix it at the beginning of the third. Dallas goes on another run to start that. It's like they had moments. It got worse as the game went along, but I'm watching this game going it's like they're playing fine, except for these, you count the Hardy burst in there, like these 90-second or 2-minute stretches where they're just awful.
It felt to me
never played great at any point either.
No. Oh, no. I mean, this was a game where, other than maybe Dorian Finney-Smith in his own right in terms of what's your role, did you fill your role? Dorian had 11 points off the bench, 3 of 4 from behind the arc, made both of his free throws, hit 3 rebounds. He was not brilliant in this game, but I thought in his own right, he played a well enough game. He was credible on the floor. And
I'll give him this, Andy. I'm going to cut you off. I'll give him this. He was a +3 in a game the Lakers lost by
21. Right.
That's not easy to do.
No. And I thought from start to finish, Dorian was the only guy that you could look at and say he did his job reasonably well. Everybody else on the team that played tonight, there were a few guys that had a quarter that was pretty good, or, pockets of the game that were good, but nobody played well, even close to well enough from start to finish. And some guys were just straight up bad from start to finish.
I look at Max Christie, who had a really nice second quarter, and, LeBron had stretches, particularly when Anthony Davis was out, where there was a lot of hop in his game. But then in the second half,
he had a lefty dunk for the ages.
Oh, I mean, some of the highlights coming out of this game, you're going to think LeBron played spectacular.
Yeah, that was legit incredible. Switched hands, that was amazing.
Yeah, he had a couple of plays like that were just highlight level. But in the end, it's kind of a quiet 18 points, 10 rebounds is good, 8 assists is good, only 2 turnovers, but they were not untimely. Is that a word? It is now. The Lakers didn't turn the ball over. He was
as bad defensively as everyone else.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The Lakers didn't turn the ball over in this game. It was, I think they had 8 on the night. No, it was up to 10 by the end. But the second half was just sloppy in moments when they couldn't afford it. AD, you look at it, 21-12 and a couple blocks, but he missed so many shots, uncharacteristically missed a ton of shots near the rim. Rui, kind of an invisible game from him. Jackson Hayes had 4 fouls in his first 5 minutes.
I was so mad at JJ. He had 4 fouls in 4 first half minutes, and JJ took him out. I really wanted to see if Jackson could foul out in 1 quarter.
Yeah.
Because that's not easy to do, but Jackson really seemed up for it.
Yeah.
He was hilarious, but he was not good.
I'll tell you what really bugs me about this game, and why, another reason why I think this game matters, especially in the context of a guy that we, like a lot of Lakers fans, are critical of frequently. I'll explain next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Ultimate College Basketball HC. I want to take a moment to introduce a brand new mobile game that is really exciting. Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you've ever dreamed of being a college basketball head coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes. And it's a modernized pair of shoes. In Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program, from recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training programs, handling NIL deals. Again, modern 2025 version, and managing scholarships. It's all in your hands. And when it comes to game time, you draw up the offensive plays, you set your strategy, and the way you play won't just affect the current season. It can shape the future of your school's basketball program. It's a game that lets you feel the entire weight of what it means to be a head coach and to be the guy that leads your team to glory. There's a special offer for Locked On NBA listeners. Use the promo code Locked On CBB, all in caps, inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's the perfect way to kickstart your coaching career. To download Ultimate College Basketball HC, just visit ultimate-cbb.com or just look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Basketball HC. Begin your coaching legacy today.
Quick reminder to everybody, make sure you're checking out the postcast with Dave Palais after every game. I'm sure he was as annoyed as the rest of us after losing to the Mavs 118-97 on Tuesday night. Also, make sure you are signing up for the free daily newsletter from this show, Locked On Lakers. You go to lockedondaily.com and click on Locked On Lakers, and the show and a bunch of NBA analysis is delivered right to your inbox every day. So that is kind of cool also. So we are often very critical of Rob Pelinka. We both liked the work that he did in getting Dorian Finney-Smith, but broadly critical of Rob Pelinka. He has, to be fair, a very hard job and a difficult balancing act.
Yeah, just ask him. He'll tell you.
In Apron World.
It's one of his favorite topics.
It is.
Just how hard his job is.
Marvel Universe. Anyway.
Don't get the man started.
Jeez, Rob, enough about Apron World. We get it. I know your job is hard. But he's got to figure out, the Lakers don't have many assets. It will undoubtedly make whatever rebuild is inevitably going to come harder and longer.
You're never going to do a rebuild, Brian.
No, but some people have rebuilding thrust upon them.
No, not these
whatever
guys.
suckiness comes, whatever dark period.
Reload, baby. They don't rebuild.
All right.
Come on.
I know that's the idea. When you
99% live.
When you trade away these assets and stuff like that, you're taking an enormous risk, and you have to have an understanding of whether or not the thing that you're trying to improve is worth the quote unquote all-in move. And when they lose games like this, I think really good teams don't lose this game. They lose the Houston game. That can happen to anybody. You go to Houston.
We weren't even upset about the Houston game.
I wasn't. I mean, I thought it was potentially revealing and all that kind of, but angry about it. No, I wasn't. Good teams lose those games. Good teams almost never lose these games. And so if you're Rob Pelinka and you're trying to figure out what is this group, can they play consistently enough through an April stretch to get into a good playoff seed, and then, first round, second round, a conference final, whatever it might be, to justify the risk that we're taking by investing in them this way. When you botch games like this, it makes it hard. James Worthy made the point, you can't go win 7 out of 10 or whatever they've done and think, okay, we got it. We're good. It's you win 19 of 22. You win 25 of 32. You do it over a sustained period, and then you can believe that you've got something dialed in. Their Lakers aren't nearly there yet.
It's funny that you use the phrase dialed in, because this was a game where I don't think the Lakers were guilty of not playing hard. Like, it felt like physically they were JJ said after the game that he thought they played a little bit tired, but it didn't feel to me like they were playing half speed, but they did not play mentally dialed in at all. Like, a couple guys after the game talked about a lack of communication, lack of talking defensively. JJ, in talking about the defensive lapses, and there were so many in this game, he didn't even sound angry or frustrated, as he was straight up confused and baffled by what they're doing. Like, there were a couple times where he said, I've never seen that before, like describing whatever they were doing that was supposed to be coverage. Like, he seemed genuinely like, what the F, man? Like, what are you guys doing?
I've not seen that before in a good way, where it's like, ooh, how innovative. No, this was bad. I don't know what they're doing, and it's not good.
Yeah. And like, the Lakers were just not reacting well to anything that was happening in this game. Like, on Twitter at Cam Brothers, I had a few people complaining to me about the lineup combinations that JJ was using. Like, in particular, one point down the stretch where it was LeBron, AD, Reaves, Connect, and Rui, which obviously has some defensive liabilities there. We could put it generously. And what I said to this guy is like, look, yes, they needed stops, but they were also down double digits. They need scoring. Like, this is what happens when you don't have enough two-way guys. Like, could you have put DFS out there instead of Rui? Like, sure, fine. Like, this was a night where he was, by his standards, because he's not a natural scorer, certainly not the way Dalton or Rui are. Like, but he had a shot going. If you wanted to put him out there, fine. But like, the problem in this game was not DFS not being out there in that moment, because he played 28 minutes in this game, and it's not like the defense was great when he was out there either. The problem was there was no lineup combination you can put out there when everybody is not doing their jobs. That's really, I'm not trying to be an apologist for JJ. I'm just saying there really was, it's not like he sat a hot hand tonight. You know what I mean? Or like a guy that was creating defensive momentum and you sat him. Like, nobody was doing their job tonight.
I think you have a situation, you mentioned in the first segment, and I think it was really instructive as to how difficult it would be to coach a game like this. When nobody is consistent, like some guys, it's like, be consistently bad. Like, you can just say, oh, it's not your night. Like, okay, fine. I can just, but like, it wasn't really Max's night. And then it kind of was Max's night. And then it kind of wasn't Max's night again.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of, it could be AD's night, but then AD, really is not AD's night. It's just one of those days. And then it kind of was, and it wasn't. Then he missed a couple fourth quarter free throws. It's like, somebody be what you are for an entire game. And so I think, you talk about
Dalton had a really good fourth quarter, but that was basically it.
You talk about a lack of a hot hand. There was no like people were alternately, they were hands, and then they were feet, and then sometimes they were elbows. It's like you couldn't even tell what they were on it. And I will say this, like, it is interesting that Redick used the idea that they played like a tired team, and that certainly gets to my impression watching, which was the defensive communication was horrendous. And the first thing that happens in any sport, I think almost at any level, when people get tired, is that they stop talking. The first thing that goes is communication. And that looked like what was happening. So in that sense, the diagnosis was I wanted to say
I thought you were about to say murder.
I wanted to say murder.
You
always get mad at me. You always get mad at me for going with polls that like you have to be at least 73 years old to understand. And
you know what though?
In my head, I said diagnosis murder.
I would have been
say it out loud out of courtesy to you.
I would have been cool with that one because it was organic. It was not forced. It just came to you off the top of your head, and it would have been just a throwaway. People got it. Great. If not, whatever.
But anyway, I was trying to be respectful to you because you don't usually like when I do that.
It depends on just how hard you're looking to jam the joke in.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty good.
I'm looking to jam it in really, really hard.
That would have been pretty good.
But anywho, like that as a diagnostic makes sense. But okay, well, that's distressing because the Lakers play every other day until they go out on the Grammy road trip, and it's not like you get your energy back off of that. Like, you know, back to back. I understand there's a difference. That day off makes a difference, but I don't like to hear anything that implies that the team might be getting tired again, because we saw what happened when they got tired, and it was horrible.
Yeah, it was. It's an interesting diagnosis.
Murder.
Austin Reaves talking about his bad performance in this game that I wanted to mention, first of all, just because I thought it was good that he called himself out, but also mention like Gabe played tonight and his return wasn't great. And I want to raise a question that I don't think Laker fans are going to want to hear, but I think it's fair to ask. So we'll get into that next. Locked on Lakers brought to you by Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. One of my favorite memories of 2024, Hamilton on Broadway last spring. It was a terrific show. Plus, my daughter got to meet basically everyone in the cast. After the show, they were all hanging outside the theater. They were all really nice. She got selfies with them. It was really, really fun. And Game Time has made it easier to get tickets for live events like that with features like Game Time Picks. It filters out all the fluff just to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And, you know, they've got features like panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what everything's going to look like when you sit down. And the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time app. What time is it? Game time.
It's a quick reminder to everybody that the DVD collection of Diagnosis Murder makes a great gift for anybody. Dick Van Dyke, still out and active. What is he like? He's like 98 years old or something like that.
He's very pushing 100. Pushing 100
for him.
Now we're reaching, pushing it too far. Now we're reaching, pushing it too far.
Scott
Austin Reaves after the game was asked about being, as he put it, targeted defensively, and this was something that was happening throughout the game. You know, Austin was not the only one, but he was one of the prominent guys being targeted. And Austin described the first half of his game defensively as, quote, god awful. And he thought maybe he was a little bit better defensively, but he said, quote, I was just really bad on both sides of the ball tonight. And that is true. It also came, though, on a night where Gabe Vincent returned. And I recognize he's not played in a few games. And Gabe has generally played over the last, 3 or so weeks, I think pretty well. But Gabe had 0 points on 0-4 shooting, a couple of assists, but he was not particularly helpful in this game either. And I am, as much as I do like the DFS trade, and I think Dorian provides some utility that they needed, I am a bit concerned about what they miss in D'Lo. As far as somebody that can help create some offense, but also too provide a bit of a wild card offensively, like on a night where you might need something. And granted, with D'Lo, particularly this season, it has not been something that you can count on, even in the way that D'Lo has often been a hot and cold X factor in the past. Like we've said before, his shooting, maybe the December notwithstanding, his shooting has not been up to his standards. His scoring has not been up to his standards. But if nothing else, his point guarding has been pretty good all year. And this came to mind just when you mentioned Rob Pelinka and the stuff that he needs to be thinking about in how to address needs with now a month leading up to the trade deadline. I've been thinking about it since the trade anyway, but particularly when you mentioned the Pelinka piece of this.
Well, look, I mean, on balance, you and I both approve of and like the trade. And, it's like, especially, you've got to give up something to get something. What they got in Russell was something that they.
I think DFS is going to be help. I think DFS in particular will be helpful in the playoffs.
I agree, and but we also said it is not without cost, and there are going to be games when you miss the scoring ability of D'Angelo Russell, the offensive organization ability, the distribution. Would they have scored 115 points if D'Lo was in this game? I have no clue. Would it have been helpful to have another source of playmaking and ball handling in this game? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where, you are extremely reliant on AR to be good every night.
Yeah.
And when he's not, you're going to feel it because there's there's not a lot of secondary ball handling on this team. So, obviously LeBron functions as a point guard and in a lot of ways is one of the best point guards the game has ever seen. And I'm not, but like, even then you've got LeBron and you've got Reaves, and that's kind of it. And those guys are pretty good. And when they're on, it's like, it's kind of all you need. But you don't have anything coming off the bench.
I remember when
that's just not what Gabe Vincent is.
No, and I remember actually when they made this trade, which again both of us thought was a good trade, and it was feeling pretty inevitable that D'Lo was going to be traded for something before the deadline. But one of the things that I did mention was, in a lot of ways, this was a bet on Austin, not just because his ball handling responsibilities and playmaking stuff like that would naturally increase. It's because you lose the safety net in D'Lo.
Yeah.
Like if Austin's not having a good night, or if say you just need more. And look, to be clear, this game wasn't lost because of Austin. Like they're again, I don't think anybody other than DFS had a game that they could write home about or even remotely close. But it just got me thinking about some of this in terms of what they do moving forward, how they try to fix certain because they need Austin out there a lot, but Austin is somebody that gets targeted a lot defensively. So
for sure,
finding that balance is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it ultimately they're not really constructed to get 37 points from 37 or 39 from LeBron, 39, right? From LeBron and AD. Like on a lot of nights, that's not going to be enough.
Nope.
And if you are, you're going to need a 26 point game from Reaves, or you're going to need 24 from Christie, or Rui's got to give you more than 6 in 25, almost 26 minutes. And they are a team that is very reliant on the consistent output of their stars. We talk about, like they need Reaves to play well. I don't want to do the thing where we kind of look at all the supporting cast and this guy didn't do this and this guy didn't do that. They got 39 points from LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That is not enough from those guys. And while, some of AD's issues were related to literally every time he touched the ball, Dallas was sending 2-3 guys and, making him pass out of it. He still missed 3 or 4 or 5 shots that on most nights AD makes.
He could have had 10 extra points on layups.
Yes, absolutely. And if those 10 extra points get you, so it only gets you within, 10, but like it changes the whole tenor of the game because you're not behind and stuff. You're instead of down 4, you're down 2. Instead of down 6, you might be down 3.
If 80
all these other things,
first half, they close the first half up, and that changes how they feel going into the third quarter.
All of it matters. And so I think fundamentally it starts with they did not get enough from their stars. And so I don't want to, I probably should have gotten into this earlier. And, I know we talked about LeBron not playing great and AD not playing great. And sometimes we skip them because those guys being really good and needing to be really good is, I think, considered sort of table stakes and baked into the whole thing. Like, well, yeah, obviously. But when you do start to get into the supporting cast and spend too much of a show, I don't mean too much like we did it wrong, but a lot of a show focused on those things and not mentioning it. It is important to circle back. 39 points from LeBron James and Anthony Davis is not going to win them very many games. I don't care how good their defense is. Those guys on a night-to-night basis need to be giving them 50. And that is like a starting point.
I mean,
and if they get less than that, you're going to need something else to compensate. And some nights you're going to get it and some nights you're not, because Reaves is for the most part delivering, but is going to have an off night here.
I was just going to say, taking a step further, 39 from LeBron and AD isn't enough. 54 from LeBron, AD, and Reaves definitely
isn't enough.
Because that's your big three on this team. If you're only getting 54 from those three combined.
I mean, what's the bare minimum? 65 probably that you need from those three?
Unless you're going to be playing like bad boys Pistons levels defense. That's not enough from any of those guys.
So I will start there. This is rephrase. I will finish there. The show is basically over.
Yeah.
My diagnosis for when I should have gotten that in there, I murdered that point by not mentioning it earlier and stronger. There is a 0% chance, by the way, that I'm going to delete this little picture. It's going to come back. This was an opportunity game, and they really blew the opportunity. And it's like I've gotten like 4 or 5 really angry texts from people that text me when the Lakers do annoying things. And they're all really, I get it. This is bad night.
Here's the thing too. All it does is ratchet up even more games that you now have to win in January. We've talked about the importance of crushing January. Now there are a couple games that maybe you would have been okay with them dropping just from a keeping it realistic standpoint. Now it's like you got to be a little more unrealistic because you have to stack these wins.
Yep. And it starts on Thursday against Charlotte. My God, Andy, if they don't win that game.
Charlotte at home.
If they don't win that game, my diagnosis for them will be
okay, enough. Now it's jumped the shark, man. Enough.
It didn't take long. All right. Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 27,000, probably 26,000 subscribers now. And sign up for the Locked on Lakers newsletter. Check out the postcast. We'll see everyone tomorrow.